Today's County Planning Committee, being held today on the 4th of February. I'm Councillor Gillian Campbell. I'm chairing today's meeting. This meeting is broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we start the main business, may I remind people to switch off your mobile phones and make silent any other devices. Microphones to be switched off at all times until invited to speak, and when invited to speak, please introduce yourself. For the benefit of listed speakers, I'll just run through the procedure. There are several applications on the agenda. Today there's 2 applications, and we'll be starting with the Old Quarrington application. Before each one, the planning officer will present their report going through their recommendation. I will then ask the speakers registered for that application to address the committee in the following order: parish councillors, ward members, objectors and then supporters. Objectors and supporters are limited to 5 minutes, and if more than one in each category, then the time shared between them. For example, if there's 2 objectors, you each have 2.5 minutes to speak. Registered speakers can only make their representations once, but may be asked questions by members. I'll now introduce the officers present.
Kirsty Charlton, Committee Services.
Laura Ackerman, Legal Officer.
Stephen Reid, Planning Manager, JEP.
Claire Teasdale, Principal Planning Officer.
Callum Harvey, Senior Planning Officer.
Patrick Chisholm, Environmental Health Officer.
Steve Pilkington, Strategic Development Manager.
Thanks everyone. Now start the meeting, and we'll move on to the agenda. Any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Something's come up at the last minute. Councillor Freeman can't attend the meeting. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Wilkes. So there's no substitute members today, is that correct? Yeah. Declarations of interest. None? Okay. And now we'll approve the minutes held on the last meeting. I think that was the 3rd of December, I can't remember now. And do I have a proposed and seconder? Councillor Benningham, Councillor Hope. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Okay, we'll now move on to the main business. We have, as I say, we have 2 applications. We're starting with the Old Quarrington application, and Claire will now present a report.
Good afternoon, members. This is our application for the extraction of Permian magnesium limestone and sand reserves until 2042, and the importation of inert material for restoration purposes, along with the regularisation of the site office, weighbridge and parking area, and a scheme for the progressive and final restoration of Old Quarrington and Cold Knuckles Quarry by 2044. Just before I start, I'd just like to give you an update to 3 conditions. In terms of condition 21, this relates to standoff distances, and the wording in the officer report is set out on the slide, and also a proposed change to the wording. The reason for the change is in order to reflect the working arrangement. Currently approved plans and proposed plans show a standoff from St Paul's Cemetery, and there is no change to the previously permitted extraction boundary, but the distance is less than 150 metres. So the wording of the condition reflects the approved plans that actually show a standoff distance on them. The other change that I'd like to propose to a condition is in relation to condition 31. Now, condition 31 relates to stockpiling, and it says that stockpiling would only take place within the quarry void. The reason for the change is that the applicant considers that a stockpiling area additional to that in the quarry void is actually required and would continue to be required while mineral extraction is taking place. So the amendment to the condition would require details of any overspill stockpile areas and the heights to be agreed in writing with the council. So it wouldn't just be a case they could put them anywhere they want it, they'd have to agree them with us. The other change is in respect to condition 44. There's reference made to a noise level of 55 dB, but it should read 50 dB, and that's stated and assessed in the officer report. Old Quarrington Quarry is an existing site which incorporates Cold Knuckles Quarry, and that's the southern area of the site, but they've been working as a whole under the name of Old Quarrington Quarry for a number of years now. It's an established site and it extracts aggregate grade limestone and sand. The site's located to the east of the hamlet of Old Quarrington and northwest of Quarrington Hill. The application site itself is described in paragraphs 9 to 17 of the officer report, which highlights relevant features and designations in the areas. This is an up-to-date aerial photograph of the site, and this shows the, well, you can see the working area, the extent of the extraction boundary, which is over here. This is phase 5. I'll show you phase and plan shortly, but this shows us the extent, and it's not proposed that the extent of the extraction boundary would change as a result of this planning application. It would be a continuation of what's already in place. These are photographs of the office building and the weighbridge area, which are located within the site, and are also part of the application, which you'll have read was for the regularisation of those features. This is the current sand extraction area, just to sort of give you a feel, basically, of it. In the distance on the top, you can see an excavator for the limestone, because this is, as I said, it's a limestone. It also takes sand out. They have to take the limestone away to access the sandstone below it, the sand below it, sorry. This is a photograph of the current extraction area. This is a photograph from the road U20.16, which is basically just beside Quarrington Heights in Old Quarrington. At Quarrington Hill, sorry, not Old Quarrington. These are photographs of the soil mound from the cemetery, and you can just see in the distance it straddles along here. These are views from bridleway number 42 and 44. This is the bridleway that is directly below the quarry. And this is a photograph looking from the road U2116 again, which is nearer the Heather Lardane. This is the phasing plan. This shows the 5 extraction phases, but there are 6 phases in total for the landfill. The planning application itself seeks to continue to rework the remainder of the permitted reserves of limestone and sand to remove stone off site, as well as the importation of waste to complete the restoration of the site in an area which currently doesn't have planning permission to do so. So basically it's the Cold Knuckles area to the south that doesn't have planning permission for the importation of waste for the restoration, but the area, this main area here, does. So that's what the application is sort of seeking to do, and also extend the time period for actually doing that as well. And this would extend the duration of operations, I've said in the report, by approximately 18 years. The delay in work and restoration of the site's been due to the applicant not wanting to use the construction grade limestone extracted from the site as part of the restoration work. So basically, some of the limestone was being extracted, but without the planning permission to take it off site, it was being backfilled. So basically, you were having sterilisation of the mineral resource. So there's a number of phasing drawings, but what I wanted to point out was phase 4. Extraction now is taking place in phase 5, but this shows you on here the soil mound, where I took you the photograph of from the cemetery, just to give you a little bit of idea as to where you are in the site. And then this is phase 5, and as I say, the extent of extraction is not changing as part of these current proposals. And this is the restoration plan for the site. Basically, the landform would be recontoured and the old Quarrington part of the site would be allowed to revegetate naturally and establish magnesium limestone grassland. And on Cold Knuckles, you would have species-rich calcareous grassland as well, and a seed mix which matches the local range of plants. In terms of consultations and representations we've received, these are set out in paragraph 75 to 100 of the officer report, along with the details of the publicity that we've undertaken. There's been no objections from statutory and internal consultees, subject to conditions where required. The exception being Cassop-cum-Quarrington Parish Council, whose objections relate to residential amenity, delays to reopening the bridleway, failure to restore a local cycle route, and also secure reasonable circular horse riding routes. There's been 7 representations from local members of the community objecting to the application, and the slide summarises the issues that they've raised. The concerns raised by objectors have been considered in the officer report. In summary, the application is for the continued working of an established quarry, albeit over a longer period than previously permitted, and with changes to the material that would be used to restore the site. The likely impacts have been assessed, and it's considered that the proposal would not have significant environmental effects of an adverse nature sufficient to justify recommendation for refusal, having regard to the proposed planning conditions, which we consider would provide the requisite environmental protection and control. As detailed in the officer report, there is the application supported in planning policy terms, with the site being allocated for waste disposal at the Cold Knuckles part of the quarry, and in doing so, recognising the benefit of the sale of this limestone that would have been backfilled into the site. The sale of the limestone as well, it's also important to remember, would contribute to the steady and adequate supply of crushed rock aggregate for the county. As I said previously, there has been some public interest with the 7 objections, as well as the Cassop-cum-Quarrington Parish Council, and these objections have been weighed against other representations, including those of the statutory consultees, and again have raised no overriding objections, subject to conditions where appropriate. Overall, the proposal is considered to comply with relevant development plan policies and relevant sections of the NPPF and the NPPW, the National Planning Policy Waste Document. Therefore, I recommend members of the committee that the application is approved, subject to the conditions detailed in the officer report, but with the amendments to conditions 27, 31 and 44, which I mentioned before, and also subject to the company entering into the legal agreements covered by the matters listed in paragraph 433 of the officer report. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. We can now move on to speakers. We've got several speakers, including 2 ward members. As you know, you've got unlimited time, but if you can, try and keep it to as close to 5 minutes as possible each, please. So start with Councillor Jan Blakey, please. All right, start with you, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd just like to say that some of the things that I have got in here that's been mentioned on there as well. I'm Councillor Gary Hutchinson, representing the Boburn and Coxhoe division, which also includes 2 of the communities closest to the quarry at Quarrington Hill and Old Quarrington. At the outset, Chair, I wish to be clear that I am not objecting to this application. However, I am here to raise a number of ongoing and unresolved issues raised by residents, which are material considerations and directly relevant when assessed against the County Durham Plan and mineral and waste policies. Separation distance and residential amenities, and what was mentioned on there, the current standoff distance of approximately 150 metres from the residential properties is a matter of concern locally. In the context of the County Durham Plan policies on protecting residential amenities, including those relating to noise, dust, vibration and disturbance from the minerals development, residents consider this separation distance to be insufficient. Given that the nature and the scale of the quarry operations, a greater separated distance, closer to 300 metres, would be the residents' view. Better reflect the policy requirement to avoid unacceptable impacts on neighbouring communities. Blasting and vibration impacts. Something that was mentioned only yesterday is on regarding the blasting is the times of the blasting. They do get to know, but it's basically, I think, between 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock. And they would like to know if that could be narrowed down a little bit. But blasting remains one of the most significant issues raised with me and two of my other councillors. Residents report that even low blast levels result in perceptible vibration and shock waves, causing properties to shake. This raises concerns in relation to mineral policies which require blasting and vibration to be strictly controlled and not given to rise to unacceptable impacts on property or public safety. Reports of impacts being felt as far as the churchyard raise legitimate questions about whether existing mitigation measures remain adequate. Monitoring enforcement and policy compliance. Residents have expressed concern about the lack of visible monitoring and enforcement activity. Since the departure of one of our previous monitoring officers, residents report that there are no council officers have attended the site. This is relevant to policies within the County Durham Plan, which place importance on effective monitoring, enforcement and compliance with planning conditions, particularly for mineral developments with known amenity impacts. Dust and noise monitoring arrangements, policies within the County Durham Plan and the Minerals and Waste Plan require that dust and noise impacts are properly assessed, monitored and controlled with the monitoring regimes that are robust and representative. Residents have raised concern about the independent siting and timing of monitoring equipment, including whether monitoring occurs during the peak operational activities. Residents have also provided video evidence which they have passed on, which they believe conflicts with claims that no noise is present during monitoring periods, calling into questionability the reliability of current arrangements. Chair, only yesterday, Councillor Blake and myself met Mr Hammond at the Heather Lad, and his door was covered in dust. Sensitive receptors and heritage considerations. The proximity of quarry operations to the churchyard is of particular concern. This is a sensitive receptor and a valued local asset. County Durham Plan policies relating to heritage assets and their setting require that the development does not cause harm to their significance or setting. Residents have previously been advised that quarry operations in this area may be closer than the perimeter under existing permissions, and clarity compliance is essential. Dust suppression and community impacts. Residents continue to report being regularly affected by the airborne dust, even as far as Cassop, particularly during summer months and in windy conditions. This raises concerns, once again, under the Durham County Plan, policies which require mineral developments to avoid unacceptable cumulative impacts on health, amenity and quality of life, and to demonstrate that mitigation measures such as dust suppression are effective in practice, not just in theory. One of the other main things brought up, as we saw on there on the slides from the Parish Council, is what we call the zigzag lines leading up the cemetery. The quarry we're looking at putting in steps, and we hoped a path that would not be that steep, that was spoke about, would be sorted, and that would be not as steep for cyclists, etc. The surface is eroded that many times. Also, a drop curb was mentioned at the top of the path. Whatever the view, that the path has been unsatisfactory and should be improved, also in my view. Why did I bring this up, you may well ask? I know it's much history now, but residents felt left down when they discovered that the original alternative path that was thought to be negotiated through the two fields, which is now owned by Johnson's Farm, had not in fact materialised and have been unable to remedy. Conclusion, Chair, whilst I am not opposing, might sound as though I am, but while I'm not opposing this application, I would strongly urge that the committee, in line with the County Durham Plan and Minerals policies, to ensure previous permissions are resolved. Dust, noise and vibration monitoring is independent, transparent and reflective of actual operating conditions and the cumulative impact of nearby communities given appropriate weight. Like I've said from the start, and it may sound as though we are against this application, residents are not seeking to prevent this development, They are seeking reassurances that the planning policies are being applied as intended and that the conditions are meaningfully enforceable and enforced. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchison. Councillor Bakey, did you wish to add something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. I'd just like to say that I've represented this area now for over 18 years and I've still yet to find where we can solve some of these issues. Like Councillor said, we're not against the thing. It's the material impacts on our communities. We are surrounded, the whole area, our division is surrounded by quarrying. It is what it is where we live. The impacts on the residents are vast, although it's not seen all year round. It is for, I would say, roughly about 6 or 7 months of the year when they are moving the materials in and out. It's wet, it goes all over the roads, and it can be seen all over the place. You know, we get the road what leads from the bypass road up into the quarry is a very long road. It's a drag road, and most of the stuff has cleared off wheels by the time it gets to that road from the quarry through potholes and speed humps. Unfortunately, this is not working. It is still, that road is still a mess. We've asked for wheel washers. We get told wheel washers are broken down. Now, this is not just happening in just this quarry. This is happening in all the quarries surrounding us, which means we are blocked in by all this stuff on the roads, which is very dangerous because it becomes a skid pan. As far as the walkway down from Quarrington Heights, which the councillor mentioned, this has never been resolved. It's been washed away because of the incline is that big. It has been washed away 3 days after it was put in. The residents round about, like I say, are complaining all the time about the dust, not so much the noise from down the bottom end, the top end, the vibrations. They are saying that the quarry do not hold the blast records. Once the blast has taken place, then blast records get sent on. Now, if a resident is wanting to query them records, where did they go? It's not open and transparent. They can't go back because they've already sent them records on. Like I say, I'm not objecting to it, but I do think some of the mitigating things going on, and also to add, at the very bottom of the entrance of the drag road, we have an encampment which leads off that road, which is now storing whatever rubbish it is burning at all times of the year. It's going across both the B road and it is also going across the A1. And we have reported this more times than enough to officers, where we get told, tell the fire brigade. Well, it doesn't stop this from continuing on, but it is being led off to from the road what the quarry are using. So to me, and the size of them wagons who are coming down there, they're not little. So are we waiting for an accident waiting to happen somewhere on that road by somebody who shouldn't be using that road? So that's all I'd like to say, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Now we have two representatives, is that right, from Richard Baradell. Is it just you, Richard, that's going to speak?
Yes, it was just me speaking.
You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Richard Baradell and I'm a Strategic Planning Manager for Tarmac. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the application. We see this as an important application that supports the continued delivery of infrastructure projects throughout the North East. At the outset, as has been set out, I want to emphasise that this is not a proposal for a new quarry. The site has been in operation for decades and already benefits from long-established mineral permissions. It is also an allocated site in the County Durham Minerals and Waste Plan. The quarry supplies high-quality limestone and sand to local construction projects, both large and small, and directly employs 8 people, with many more supported indirectly across the haulage, maintenance and construction supply chain. The overarching objective of this application is to avoid the unnecessary sterilisation of high-quality magnesium limestone, a finite and strategically important mineral resource. Whilst the current permission at Cold Knuckle Quarry requires this limestone to be used for restoration, this application seeks to replace that requirement with the use of imported inert materials to restore the site instead. It is our view that this revised scheme not only allows the limestone to be used productively in construction, contributing to the steady and adequate supply of aggregates in line with the County Durham Plan, but it also supports the responsible management of inert materials arising from within the region, helping to ensure there is sufficient capacity within the county. This application represents good stewardship of finite resources by using inert waste to restore the site, enabling valuable stone to be extracted to support the local and regional economy. Members will be well aware of the economic importance of mineral extraction. As noted, the quarry provides skilled employment and supports a wide network of local contractors and suppliers. While staffing levels are expected to remain consistent, this application provides long-term certainty for the workforce, as well as for businesses and developments that rely on the quarry's products. The provision of aggregates from the quarry also ensures there remains a steady supply of materials available in the local area, whilst also reducing the distance that would otherwise need to be travelled to deposit inert arisings from construction projects in the region. Turning to environmental considerations, the proposal has been comprehensively assessed through an environmental impact assessment. All technical consultees, including Natural England, the Environment Agency, the Highways Authority and the County's Environmental Health, have raised no objections, subject to the imposition of appropriate conditions. Given the long-established nature of the quarry, the continuation of operations does not introduce new impacts or new sources of disturbance. The proposal simply maintains an existing pattern of activity, and in fact the application does tighten several of the existing environmental controls. I would also like to address the public's rights of way matter, which I know is an issue that is important to members and the local community. Although the reinstatement of Bridleway 34 and 35 will occur later than originally anticipated, it is secured through a legal agreement and will be delivered as early as practically possible. Alternative routes are already in place and these will remain open throughout the life of the quarry, ensuring public access is maintained. Regarding the zigzag, as has been referred to today, Tarmac are also working proactively with the council to address concerns regarding the bridleway to the southeast, including having conversations regarding ways to divert water by raising the drop curb and improving the surface. I would also like to raise that upon restoration of the site, the area will offer enhanced access opportunities through a more naturalised landscape. Chair, members, in summary, this application protects a strategically important mineral resource, contributes to the regional economy, secures responsible management of inert waste which cannot otherwise be recycled or reused, enhances biodiversity and landscape character, reduces impacts on residents through tighter conditions, and delivers a high-quality restoration to nature conservation. This is a well-designed, environmentally responsible, policy-compliant proposal, and I respectfully urge members to support the officer recommendation and approve the application. Thank you for your time. I would also like to make myself available for any questions, along with the Old Quarrington Quarry Manager, Kevin Meads, who sat next to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Claire, obviously quite a few points there to go through, particularly I think the mitigation measures and how that's being tightened up.
Sorry, I don't know what's happening. Yes, I'd just like to sort of make a few points following the local members. In terms of noise, dusting and blasting, they're matters which I have given considerable thought to and considered in the report. And I would sort of draw members' attention to the section on residential amenity. In terms of noise, dust and blasting, we do have currently noise action plans, dust action plans, blast action plans in place at the site. And as part of the new scheme of conditions, what we're proposing is to have further updated documents to be produced and to be approved by the council. This is because although action plans were included in the application, there's just a few areas where we do want to tighten up on, and so that's a condition that we're looking to impose on any new grant of planning permission. In terms of blasting, there is a blasting protocol which takes place, and residents are given notice of blasts that take place. Just in context, the number of blasts that I understand were undertaken in 2025 was 1. And another blast was taken just the other week as well. And it is the case that the quarry sends out notifications to residents 2 days prior, and also send an email the day before just as sort of a reminder that this is going to take place. We also have a condition in terms of the level, the blasting level that they can undertake. So we're setting a level like what we do with noise in terms of what we think would be acceptable and what wouldn't be acceptable in terms of vibrations. And this is based on government guidance. All of the noise, dust and blast results we can request to see these results. And, you know, we can sort of check full compliance because there is a requirement for them to monitor these blasts. What I'd like to say as well is that I did an overview of the planning complaints that the planning service has received since 2018. And I've put details in each of the sections on noise, dust and blasting within the officer report. And in terms of dust, we had 5 recorded dust complaints, and we had an additional one in August, which myself and Patrick Chisholm, the Environmental Health Officer, went to visit the complainant. And up to now, we've had 3 of those 5 that I mentioned earlier had been recorded, following our investigation, we'd concluded that there was no breach, and 2 were resolved breaching to do with dust. In relation to noise, we had 1 complaint in 2021, and again our investigation concluded that there'd been no breach. In terms of blasting, again since 2018, we've received 3 complaints, 1 in 2019, 1 in 2020 and 1 in 2023. 2 were no breach, 1 had been a breach. We do, as a council, have an enforcement service. If people have complaints, then, you know, we encourage them to come and tell us so that we can investigate. So it's just, you know, some reassurance to members that through these requests for updated noise dust action plans that, you know, that would, you know, seek to perhaps address your concerns. But also, if we don't get complaints, we're not necessarily going to know about them either. So I would encourage members of the public to let us know. In terms of standoff distances, there was a policy in our old Minerals and Waste local plan that had a particular standoff distances from a group of 10 or more residential dwellings. That's referred to in the officer report as well, because that plan was in place at the time we considered the applications way back in 2011. However, the application that's been made to us today already is going off the same extraction limits. And as you can see from the aerial here and the plan that we had previously up about the phasing plans, they're already at the extent of working. They're not going to take any more green land. They're already, you know, they're at their boundary, apart from a very small area that the company may or may not, beside a hedgerow of trees, take out. In terms of the public rights of way, there had been an issue back in, again, sort of 2011, when we considered the review of old mineral planning permissions for this site. And at the time, actually, if I just, might be easier to might just be easier to show on here. So, sorry, I'm not very, oh, can you see my cursor? Right, so there used to be a bridleway that came over here, but as part of the quarrying operations there was a need to have that stopped up to enable the mineral extraction to take place. So what happened was there was another bridleway along here that became dedicated because it hadn't been a dedicated bridleway in order to still allow access around here. what was also additional was there was a footpath up here that was also provided, and then also this loop around the field with the green dashed line. So that was an additional public right-of-way that was provided. And at that time, and it's still the opinion of officers, that the replacement public rights-of-way were adequate and appropriate. The area where the zigzags are around this area here. And again, that's an issue that I've sought to address in the committee report. So, and again, that is something that there has been improvements to. I went to the site myself on Sunday, and it is currently in a good state due to recent works that's been carried out. The other issue that had been about public rights of way was that the locals had wanted another alternative route which totally bypassed going past the quarry. But unfortunately, that wasn't something that could end up being delivered, and that was land that ended up being sold to a third party. So that didn't happen. But I must emphasise, in 2011 and now, we consider that the public rights of way provision is appropriate. Just the other thing I wanted to mention was in terms of assessing the application against the County Durham Plan policies. That's what we've sought to do. It's detailed in the report, and I hope that, you know, that gives members assurances that we have considered all of the issues that's been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. I think I'll pull in Patrick now to, I'm sure you've got further comments to add on the mitigation and how we want to revise it, tighten it up more by condition.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My name's Patrick Chisholm. I'm an environmental health officer at the council here. So, yes, we've tried to tighten up the dust action plan as part of the application that's come in. So, what's happened at the minute is there's an existing dust action plan that's going to be replaced by if approved, a new dust action plan that will then get replaced again within 2 months of a further dust action plan with more tighter controls in it again. So that's what we're looking to do, basically, to take the opportunity to tighten up the controls for the quarry operator. So that's going for the dust action plan and the noise action plan as well. So we're looking to basically tighten up the controls for the quarry operators around those issues. One of the members mentioned that we'd had reports from the Heatherlad Inn about dust issues. So I think it's worth stressing that myself and Claire did go out in response to the last set of complaints we had in August this summer. It was a particularly dry spell. When we got there, there wasn't any visible dust emissions from the site at that time. The complaint had already been made directly to the quarry operators, who told us that they'd taken action to remove one of the stockpiles that they thought was responsible for that time. They'd lowered the stockpile, moved it elsewhere in the quarry, and they thought that that had resolved the issue. At that time, the dust monitoring gauges that were around the quarry weren't reporting issues. They weren't suggesting that there was levels of dust in exceedance of a threshold where we would require them to take further action. So that was resolved without any formal action really against the quarry operators. So yes, overall we are looking to take the opportunity with the application to tighten up the controls around dust with a new dust action plan, and again regularise the issues with noise again through another noise management plan that they'll be required to submit and agree with us should the application get approved, and we hope that will bring about benefits eventually to the residents and around issues that are ongoing.
Thank you. Are you able to say what additional measures you're looking at introducing to tighten up the plan?
What we'd be looking to tighten up in the new Just Action Plan would be to clarify exactly what sort of dust monitoring measures are going to be undertaken by the quarry operators. I know that in the past there's been a few allegations that the dust monitoring is not done independently. the way it works is the quarry operators employ a contractor to undertake the dust monitoring on their behalf. The results are sent away for analysis. We get a copy of the report and the quarry operator gets a copy of that report. We'd be looking to make sure that the contractor undertaking those works gives us the best possible dust monitoring equipment for that sort of situation and ensures it's sited appropriately and going to be providing really the maximum reassurance that it can for the people who are impacted most.
Thank you. I think now I'll throw it open for questions from members. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kerry Hope, the Dells Lane Division. What explosives is used for blasting on the site? Somebody answer that, please.
I think that's probably best for Tarmac. Is that all right?
Kevin Meads, Operations Manager for Old Quarantine. We use ANFO.
Councillor Wilkes.
Councillor Mark Wilkes, Framwellgate and Newton Hall Division. Two things. On the working hours, can someone explain to me why it's necessary for the haulage and loading to start at 6 o'clock in the morning and then run through till 7 at night? When the rest of the site, it's only 6, 7 in the morning. It does seem a really long period of time and a very early time to start as well, to be fair. Thanks.
Thank you. Claire or Mr. the operator?
The hours of working are quite long at the site. As set out, there's a section about working hours within the officer report that sets out that all working hours had been between 6 and 9 o'clock when we dealt with the ROMP review back in 2011. And that was because we couldn't impact upon the economic viability of an operator's existing planning permission, or else we would have to pay a compensation. But this has given us an opportunity with the new application to look again at working hours. So the majority of the hours, when you look, you'll see that they are between 7 and 7. However, the loading and the haulage of the mineral was requested by the applicant to still be 6 o'clock, because I believe for their operations, and they'll be able to sort of give you more information about that. However, we've assessed those working hours and we consider that they are appropriate. I don't know, Richard or Kevin, if you want to add anything.
Operationally, we attend site. We start work at 0600 in the morning, Monday to Friday. We do our morning meetings, so we actually don't have any machine movements until 6:30 in the morning. And that's when they start moving into position. They do their morning checks. So by the time it actually comes to doing physical work, it will be 7 o'clock.
Thank you. You've got a follow-up, Councillor Wilkes.
I have. I'm satisfied with that response. The bit that I'm not satisfied with actually is a different issue, which goes back to the dust issue. That we seem to have a company that basically pays somebody else under a contract to confirm whether or not there's a dust issue, and then gives us that information as a council, and we then rely on trust. I don't understand why they don't give us the money, so we then get an independent firm to do that. It'll cost exactly the same amount of money. We've still got to review it, but then we at least feel like we've got some kind of control, and the public can be reassured that there is a separation between the company and the testers.
Claire, is there anything to add on that?
That's the way we do with the monitoring on the minerals sites and other sites, because, what the company does is employs professional noise consultants or dust people to actually go and, do the readings. So they're doing them as independent people, because obviously it's their reputation as well. And so they supply, when we request dust or noise results, we get them submitted to us. And as I say, they are competent third parties and qualified people who undertake that monitoring.
Thanks, Chair. Just to add to what Claire's advised committee there, Chair, it's my understanding it's quite an accepted standard national practice for operators to self-assess the work, but hopefully just to give some assurance to members that if we're ever in any doubt, that things are getting away or there are issues, then firstly we've got planning conditions which can be enforced, and secondly Patrick's environmental health team have also got the ability to take statutory nuisance action. So I can understand where Councillor Wilkes is coming from. That you know, are we inviting somebody to police their own work? Well, I think the answer is that's how we start off, and that's industry practice. But in the event that there are any complaints received, we can and sometimes do take independent monitoring action ourselves as either planning authority or environmental health authority. Chair.
Thank you. Now we've got Councillor Bell, then Councillor Hope, and then Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. Alan Bell, London West Drayton Division. And thank you for that reassurance there, Stephen. I just wondered if down the line, you know, the conditions in there are quite sort of like, it's quite thick, the document here is regard. Will the dust situation and the monitoring, will that be reviewing every so often, you know, as like some reassurance, like if it's you know, if members are still getting regular complaints about the dust, that the authority's got the, you know, the authority to go in there and to review it under at set stages. That would be reassuring for the committee members. A couple other things. One was like in relation to, obviously there's going to be limestone coming out the quarry now, and also inert with the waste material going in. So there's going to be a lot more traffic movements in and out of the quarry. But I didn't see any information in relation from highways comments. So I just any reassurance from Claire regarding any highways comments on that as regarding the extra movements. The wheel wash, which the local member mentioned, I think that's sort of, you know, if we can condition that it's mandatory, that a wheel wash is at the entrance, as Patrick would have seen through last summer, you know, in them conditions when you literally didn't have any rain for months. Such operations as this in all the building sites, I'm sure all local members, I definitely was, regarding dust coming, this is just building sites I know of. They were absolutely like atrocious, the dust where local residents have got to put up with. But not only wheel washers we needed in these times, that like when we got sort of like enormous amounts of rain, but also where they've got to be responsible for damping down to keep the dust down. So like both sides, so that, you know, a responsibility from the operator to work both ways, either the wheel wash and then secondly when dry periods to dampen down, you know, to give everybody the best chance possible on there. And the last one, which come to light was, which again was Patrick mentioned, was the stockpiling. I'm not sure what was stockpiled because I didn't see, apart from the limestone, I'm not sure if lime itself was stockpiled there. What was it? Because I'm not too sure it would come off, dust would come off the sand. Whatever is stockpiled, you know, during them periods, would it be worthwhile looking at that they are netted to keep any dust down? So it's a few things there, but it just gives us some reassurance, because there's a lot of members said, you know, everybody wants to keep the employment and the jobs and everything going, but we also want, it has to be in a good environment for everybody around there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I'm kind of losing the track of the list, but I think I've got it. Question about traffic movements to start with. Claire, do you want to deal with that? The number of traffic movements?
Yeah, I would. Oh, sorry. I would direct you to paragraphs 46, 47 of the committee report about the access and traffic and access. It refers to the average total vehicle movements that would be created, you know, a worst case scenario and a current scenario. The views of the Highways Authority are at paragraph 80 of the report. They've raised no objections, and subject to, you know, sort of existing conditions relating to transport and highways to be sort of rolled across to the new permissions. There is also paragraphs 238 to 249 of your report also considers vehicle movements and traffic and access. And I think what to remember is that there is going to be the period that there's not going to be the sandstone going off. Well, there's going to be some sandstone going off, some landfill coming in, but highways consider that, you know, any impact to be fine and not have any severe impact on the highways. And they're not so concerned so as to require a vehicle movements condition on the site. So I think, as I say, highways are content with the situation. In terms of a review period for noise and dust blasting plans, yes, we will sort of weave into the document where there's a 6-monthly review, so we can have a look at, you know, if we've received complaints or what has worked or what hasn't worked well when we've actually gone out to visit the site. So we will do that, and indeed that's something that, you know, we were considering as well. Is talk about a wheel wash for the site. This site has, well, you can see from that plan on the slide, it's got a very long access to it. And what happens is that up at the top, they've got some water and a hose that they can sort of clean the wheels with. They've also got some little speed bumps that they sort of go over, like that work in a little way like rattle bars, and there's consideration to a few more of those. And then it continues down the length of the road. You've also got, you know, sort of, there's the digester up in that area. You also have farmers' fields as well that, you know, sort of traffic up that road. A wheel wash per se, because obviously what you have is you can either have a wheel wash where, you know, vehicles actually drive into it and you've got spray bars that are clearing them, or you can have like wheel cleaning facilities, which doesn't necessarily mean it's an actual drive-through wheel wash. You've got perhaps, you know, other ways that they're looking to sort of clean the vehicles with. That's something that, as I say, to date, we haven't sort of considered as being necessary because things have gone, you know, they've had that long route. But that's something that, you know, the site operator as well may have a query on. Just as well, a comment actually that Councillor Blakey raised before about the area, about there is a lot of quarries in this area on the limestone escarpment, and what was set up was a road protocol in terms of getting on board the quarry operators in the area to sort of adopt a check sheet, really, how, you know, we want them to sort of deal with their vehicle movements in terms of bringing debris on the road. And what we've had, and we are due a new meeting, is every so often we get the quarry operators together and, you know, physically at one of the quarries, and we'll have a chat about what's working, what's not working. What we have found sometimes in winter, though, is that when vehicles have gone onto the road, they may well have been clean, and then because it's a lot of wet and rain, and then if the road sweeper's gone on, you might get a little bit of a film on. But, you know, the site does utilise road sweepers, but again, I think, you know, that might be a useful, you know, query to put towards the site operator as well.
I think was something left out there, Councillor Bell, the stockpiling question?
Yeah, just it was for public chair, for the for stockpiling, damping down, you know, in relation to dry periods, what you witnessed yourself.
Yeah, okay, I can take that, Chair. So, with regards to stockpiling, and I think you've mentioned netting, I don't know how practical that would be on this particular site. I think the dust management plan, as it's written, requires the operator to keep the stockpiles as low as they possibly can within the quarry void. So, the potential issue that, well, the issue that was reported in August seemed to have occurred because there was a stockpile towards an elevated level in the site. Now, with the dust management plan as it's written and as it will be sort of enforced going forward, will be that stockpiles will be as low as possibly can within the quarry void, which should hopefully alleviate that type of problem from occurring again. With regards to dust suppression, there is integrated dust suppression in the form of like piped water around the Weybridge entrance and the sort of high traffic areas near the site reception. I'm sure the quarry operators can fill in more of the details here, but that's there, that's on site, and it's just not feasible to take it everywhere around the quarry, but in those heavily trafficked areas where most of the vehicle movements occur, that's on, and I've seen it working.
Chair, Could I just ask the local member, just after that answer, in relation to the road, if they felt a wheel wash would be a good condition? I guess you know best, you know, what the complaints come in relation to the road itself.
Yes, Councillor Bell. Yeah, go ahead. Councillor Hutchinson.
I think to be fair to Tarmac, and the distance from the quarry down to there, they do go over speed bumps, they do wash them, we have seen the bows are on the road, so they do actually clean the roads, but there's still, maybe it needs more often, I'm not too sure on that. I don't know how often they really do that, but there is still a layer on there. To be honest with you, the more concern is what Councillor Blakey brought up was the encampment at the bottom of that road. I know it's nothing to do with this application, but that would be more concern of what's going in there, because the quarry wagons are taking that on the road as well. So it's not, and this is what I wanted to point out, we're not objecting to this application, and some of the things is not the quarry's fault, but where that road is related to with the quarry, so the quarry are taking that onto the roads, and we have that in other areas with soil, and other roads are probably worse in other quarry areas, which we have brought up with Claire.
Okay, Councillor Bell, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think the encampment issue will perhaps, as a separate matter with planning for a later date. Just to move on a bit, Councillor Hope, then Councillor Stevenson, Madison and Scott.
My question's just been answered off Patrick there, but I've got some points for when the debate comes. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Stevenson.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions for the quarry operators, really. Obviously, fugitive dust emissions are a problem here. What suppression systems are you using? Is there anything else you think you could add to that? Obviously, a wheel wash has been mentioned. Like, taking the bowser around the site as well, or just down the road? And can we use dust suppression maybe on your stockpiles during very dry periods in the summer? Obviously, it's not going to be needed this time of year, is it? But I'm thinking maybe it's that peak of August. Could we maybe hose down the stockpiles, maybe something like that, just to solve this problem?
Is that for the quarry manager, Johnson?
I think that's probably the best person to answer that question. Really. Yeah. Thank you.
If you'd like to go ahead.
So just on the dust suppression side, so we extended the dust suppression up to the northern part of the quarry itself, so where the inert landfill's been moving. So we've extended that up there, so that has that goes off twice every half an hour, and it runs for about 10 minutes at a time. The tractor and bowser is deployed in the dry periods, and we do from the beginning of the entrance, we go all the way up the top, we go down into the bottom. We don't soak the bottom of the sand hole purely because that's where our vehicles are moving around, so we don't take it into there. We take it up onto the northern part, and we take it all the way down to the face as well, so make sure we can cover it, maximise the amount of water we use to keep the dust down. On the back of the dust complaint that was actioned last year, it was a particularly windy day, and the actual dust came from the face. It was something that we can't change, unfortunately, but we are maximising as much as we can with dust suppression, and like I say, the tractor and bowser is always in deployment.
Thank you. Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Madison, Spennymoor Division. First of all, I did arrive a couple of minutes late. I have no declarations of interest on this one. And I'm interested in the waste that's being being imported into the site to be used as fillers. And I would like to ask, what guarantees are there that there is no hazardous materials being imported in? It does say in the report that this could be building materials from other sites. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Claire, do you want to take this one?
Oh, sorry. It's construction demolition waste as currently is imported at the site. It would just be more of it in order to fill. I think the important thing to highlight is that, yes, there's a condition that says it can only be in accordance with the environmental permit, and that's the key. This site is also subject to an environmental permit issued by the Environment Agency. that, you know, look at that particular element. There's also waste procedure handling guidelines as well, which, you know, the company adopt at the site. And so they're only going to have, you know, a permit for a particular waste type. And it's not going to be in the company's interest either to sort of import other material that wouldn't be suitable in order to, you know, to achieve their proposed restoration and aftercare benefits.
I think it's Councillor Woodhouse, then you, Kenny.
Councillor Woodhouse, Castle Eden, Passfield. It was just basically talking about that road. I travel up and down it 5 to 6 days a week, most days to work. I'd probably say there's only been a handful of times I've said, actually the road's been quite bad, quite a careful drive. But I presume you're on a no licence for your trucks. So basically part of the no licence is if you get pulled over, you have a roadside stop and you have prohibition. Now, part of that is if the trucks are caked in mud, i.e. the mud flaps or anything like that, they will get permission and their licence will be at risk of taken away. So personally, I think we're talking about wheel washers and that for the trucks and stuff, but the road one isn't that bad, but also the O licence will control how clean them trucks have to be on the road, because if they lose the O licence, they'll lose all operations. So it's quite an important bit of, what's the word I want to use, important information to have hold of, that the trucks will be going on the road reasonably clean, because if you get pulled over, their own licence at risk, which will counteract their business.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got a, I'm pretty much, I'm not against this application at all, but I have got a few concerns listening to what I've been told. So ANFO is a low acute toxicity explosive, so it doesn't really give that much risk. However, the extraction of Permian magnesium limestone and Permian basal sand does cause risks, so chronic health risks of inhalation, silicosis, cancers and other conditions such as chronic inhalation may lead to bronchitis, emphysema, in some cases kidney disease and
have you got a question
disorders.
At this point, or are you moving to debate here, Kenny?
I don't think there was any more questions. I'm moving to debate.
I'm just going to ask people if they've got any more questions first. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, sorry.
Any more questions? Anybody? Okay, carry on.
Yeah, acute health effects, exposure, irritation, that's to the eyes and skin. Ingestion is generally non-toxic, but if ingested in small amounts, ingested in large quantities may cause gastrointestinal discomfort. Special considerations, calcined heated limestone when heated high temperatures, magnesium limestone decomposes into quicklime, calcium oxide, magnesium oxide. Again,
Councillor Hope, are you bringing this relevant to the application?
Yes, absolutely. I'm no expert in this, however there are risks to the public, and I believe that a proper deluge system to keep dust down in the warm months is a must if this is passed, and also I believe that a proper washdown facility when the vehicles are coming out is a must, because once that dust gets onto the road in dry conditions, vehicles drive over it and that dust comes up, so it is potentially going to be a public health risk. Military vehicles on training areas have to wash down when they're coming off military training areas to go onto public roads because of reasons such as this. So I believe this is something that needs to have and we need to take serious heed of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before we move on, is there anything you wanted to add on that from Environment or Claire? Anything just to make sure that's points covered?
I mean, I'll speak and then I'll let Patrick. I mean, we have sort of considered, you know, sort of the impacts of dust within the report. We've considered human health. There had been, the AS considered the likely effect of the proposed development in respect of human health. And, you know, it's sort of not something that had been raised as a, you know, a major concern in that, you know, they're going to sort of suppress dust at the source. Appreciative of the fact sometimes you do get fugitive dust, but again, you know, sort of like the distances that dust travels, it's you know, not necessarily, you know, miles. It's sort of like generally in respect of sort of 100 metres, if that. Also, I think one of the things that, yes, I mean, this has as well, you know, as with other sites in the county, have been going on, you know, operational for a number of years. I mean, in terms of the specific concern about being so close, I mean, that's going to be something that the company would be particularly concerned about their own workforce and, you know, the health impacts for them. So I'm sure that, you know, as a separate thing, that's something that the company also have, you know, in consideration.
I think really we can move on there now. Open to debate. If James, you ready? Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a few comments about, you know, traffic increases with obviously inert stuff going into the quarry. From my understanding of quarry operations, I'm pretty sure that limestone will be going out to site, then wagons will be getting reloaded and going back into the site, so you'd probably not have much of an increase of wagon loads really. It just saves empty wagons going back to the quarry to reload. So it's probably the best way to get rid of that waste from these sites. Obviously, if you think about the sites across county doing that are going to use this limestone, they're only going to have one wagon going in and out every time rather than two. One going to a different site to unload the waste. Again, with the limestone, it has to be extracted from somewhere. It's a vital, you know, if you want to get a type like a Type 1 MOT certificate on, you know, on a stone, it really does have to be limestone. Normally, it has to be that harder stone. So I do think that the quarry operators do as much as they can. Really, I mean, I think maybe could we have a whale wash that's there permanently rather than, like, you know, obviously if a whale wash you have to drive through to get out of the site and it washes the wheels, or it's a choice for a driver to get out, go and pick a hosepipe up, turn it on, and go around his wagon when he's, you know, got time pressures. I think it's probably best if we have a one where you have to drive through to exit the site rather than being a choice for a driver, you know. Apart from that, I fully support this application.
So you're asking a question, permanent wheel washers. Is that going to be sort of thing considered on review anyway?
I think it would be useful to hear the view of the operator, just because the fact that if you were putting a wheel wash on the site, you'd be putting it in the site. They've still got to then come down the large haul road and, you know, they could be picking up material from, you know, like the farmer's field and, you know, the digester facility as well. That's also taken. But, I mean, as I say, it'd be interesting to hear, you know, their thoughts in terms of the, you know, their wheel cleaning facilities and what they feel, you know, can be done as well.
Kevin, can I pull you in on that one?
From our point of view, it's definitely something that we'll look at going forward. I agree with what you've said there, Claire, that we will be picking up other material as we're going down that road. But yes, I can definitely look into that, and I can escalate it to my company as well.
Thank you very much for that. Now, further comments? Councillor Shulman?
Couldn't find the switch. In view of the decision that was taken at the last full council meeting reindustrialising Durham, I would like to move that this application is approved.
Thank you. Any other comments to make at this stage? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, I'm also in support of this, but I am also in support to add a condition on for a wheel wash facility. I think, particularly in this committee, I think, you know, when any sort of large developments come in, like, you know, any building developments come in, it's a condition that the builders, the developers have to supply that wheel wash condition. We've got a chance to tidy it up, you know, and like work hand in hand with with tarmac here. I don't think, you know, like, at the end of the day, it's a good investment for the company, and it's a better investment for the locality. And I think in between all of that as well, you know, regarding the monitoring of damp and down for environmental health, ever how they can condition that and review that going forward. But I'm happy to second that with that condition, and also with the conditions as you've put forward, Claire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. The attention's just been drawn to the conditions that are already there. Condition 12, which states all vehicles leaving the site shall be clean of mud or dirt before entering the public highway. I think we're kind of covering it already. I don't think there's a need for a specific condition in addition to that, because that's already covering it. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. I think you know, that condition needs to be a little bit more robust, and you know, favour of what Councillor Bell's just said there. I do believe that it is a committee decision to put that forward. So, you know, I'll second what Councillor Bell wants to put in place there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. Steve, do you want to just pull that in?
Chair, just thinking on my feet and just having a chat with Claire there, I think we're confident, just listening to what members are asking for, is that the strict reading of this condition requires the operators to make sure that the vehicles are clean of mud, dust or debris at the point they leave the site. Now, the way this would play out is if they were just using the local measures, which you understand they use at present. If we were to get complaints about mud or dust still coming onto the highway, notwithstanding this, my view would be that we could use legal powers to insist on something firmer, something stronger. I don't think, in fairness, I don't think we could insist on a full wheel wash as of today, but hopefully give members some confidence that, you know, the way myself and Claire read this condition is that's absolutely clear that vehicles must be cleaned of mud and dirt before they enter the public highway. Now, if in months and years to come, to get that condition enforced and to make sure that happens, that does require a full-on wheel wash, then I think we do have the legal power in that condition to require that.
I'll just pull in the quarry manager at this point. Do you have any comments to make on this point?
Just on that side, like I said, I will escalate it through our management system, and I will look to see what I can do to support what they've asked.
Thank you. Can we now move on? Councillor Wilkes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if somebody else has, but if they haven't, then I'll second this application and just point out, we can't put a condition on somebody once they've left the site if there's other people dumping mud and God knows what else onto a road along that entire length. How can we condition? Because we're basically forcing somebody to clean an entire road, and there's other vehicles going on it, where it's not their responsibility if there's mud coming off a field from a farmer.
Thanks, Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Woodhouse.
Yeah, it's just more to reassure the committee. So going back to the O licence, if they find a breach of the O licence, the operator and the O licence managers and held can go to court and can go to jail. So it's in the best interest of the company to always clean the vehicles before they go on the road. So that's why that thing's put in place. And it's just to reassure the council that if it is carrying on and mud's going on there and the vehicles are even dirty, if DVSA pulls them over, there's a risk of them losing the O licence, going to court and going to jail. So they should be making sure the vehicles are clean before they leave site. So it's just more to reassure the rest of the council members.
Councillor Baker, I'll pull you in there if you want to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. What can I just say, for the last 18 years, we've worked with the Quarry Liaison Group with all our quarries, what surrounds us, which has always been very beneficial, where we've been able to take residents' concerns and everything else, along with the each quarry bringing in their forward plans and being able to discuss issues before it's getting to this sort of thing. Unfortunately, we haven't had a quarry liaison meeting now for nearly 18 months of the big quarry meetings. We also have separate meetings with each individual quarry, which we haven't had either. But understanding there's been a lot of changes in management in the quarry, all of our quarries. They've had big staff changeovers and everything else. So I would hope that the quarries would take this on board and reinstate those meetings as soon as possible, because for all the residents might not be complaining to the council, they certainly are complaining to us. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I'll just pull in the quarry manager again there. Kevin, if you just want to add your views on this. Seems like a very sensible approach.
Yeah, so we haven't had a liaison meeting since about, I want to say August last year, roughly. Myself and Claire Teasdale had spoken last week about this, and we're looking to get one put in April. I had spoke to a local resident, Mr. Cowan, referenced this, and I've emailed him as well. We just need to tie up our diaries and then we can get the liaison meeting away.
Thank you. That's covered that point. Now, I think we're at the point now where Councillor Shulman has made a proposal to approve the application with the condition, amended conditions stated at the beginning. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Wilkes, thank you. So can we have a vote on everyone in favour of the application? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Application approved. We'll just take a couple of minutes break before the next application. Right, well, it looks as though we're ready to move on to the next application. So, Callum, if you'd like to present your report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Apologies for the slight delay there. So this is the second application on the agenda. It seeks full planning permission for the erection of 105 dwellings and associated infrastructure at land at Coopers Terrace in Thornley. I do have some quick updates, Chair, but I'll cover those at the end of the main presentation, so I'll come back to that. So this the first slide shows the location of the site in the context of the village of Thornley, with the centre of the village located to the west. And the next slide shows a more zoomed in image. So to the north of the site we have allotments and some residential dwellings. To the west we have some more dwellings and a cemetery. To the south we have some more dwellings as well, and to the east we have some open countryside and a paddock. There is also a small row of houses within the centre of the site but outside of the red line. The site also features a number of existing roads and footpaths. So this was from the previously, this is because the site was previously developed, and I'll show this on the next slide. So as mentioned in the officer report, the site was previously developed for housing, and this was cleared at some point between the years 2000 and 2010. So just flicking through the site photos. So the first set of photos are taken from the western site boundary, looking east across the centre of the site. Next slide shows views of the site from the northern edge. So as mentioned in the officer report, there are some examples of vandalism and trespass, and as a result we have a line of boulders there restricting vehicular access onto the site. Next slide shows some photographs from the southeastern corner, looking across the eastern part of the site. So the photograph on the left-hand side shows some of the existing houses, and the photograph on the right-hand side shows where the proposed drainage basins would be going. Next slide shows some more photographs from the southern edge of the site, looking north across the centre of the site. So in the foreground there we've got some existing hard standing. This is from the previous housing development, which has since been cleared. So a number of these footpaths in areas of former car parking are crisscrossing the site. And an overview as well, Chair, of the southern part of the site, looking towards the southeastern corner. The reason I've got this up is that we did receive an objection from the neighbouring resident to the south after the officer report was published. I'll come back to that during my updates at the end of the presentation, but just to show this photograph, this is the southern part of the site, which is where the neighbours' concerns are focused. So in terms of the proposed site plan, the proposal has been designed to mimic the linear layout of the previous housing, which was located at this site. The layout has also been mindful of the proximity of the existing houses to the east and to the north and to the south. The proposal would use the existing access from the northwestern corner and seeks to locate drainage basins along the eastern edge, which is also the lowest part of the site. So the applicant has worked proactively with officers to secure a high quality development. One example is that the layout has been amended in order to retain the visually prominent group of trees near the northern corner of the site. So just for reference, this group of trees here. The current layout also includes an improved landscape corridor, which runs east to west near the centre of the site, so just this strip of land here. So we've got a drainage swale, got some tree planting as well, and it just helps open up the site a little bit and provide a bit of public open space close to the proposed dwellings. So the next slide shows the location of the proposed affordable housing. So there will be 11 affordable units on this development. So following the publication of the officer report, officers have in this instance agreed that 8 of these units be discounted market sale. and the remaining 3 would be affordable rent. And this would be secured through a legal agreement. So this slide shows the elevations of the proposed houses. So the proposal includes a mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties, and that mix is welcomed by officers. The provision of 11 single-storey bungalows is also welcomed by officers, as this helps address a county-wide need. So turn to the consultations and representations. So as of today, we've received 10 letters of objection. Their primary concerns being the loss of existing public open space, increase in traffic, impact on dentist, GP surgery and school capacity, and the impact on the amenity of neighbouring residents. We've also received 4 letters of support, which welcome the investment and regeneration of the area and highlight that the site does suffer from antisocial behaviour, including youths, motorbikes, quad bikes and travelling communities. And this leads to damage and a risk to pedestrians who use the footpath network across the site. The Parish Council also support the redevelopment of the site, given the mentioned vandalism issues, and support the provision of new affordable housing in the village. So in response to the key concerns which have been raised by the public, so as explained in the officer report, the proposed loss of what is considered to be poor quality public open space is justified given the benefits of delivering housing and affordable homes and bungalows in what is considered to be a sustainable location within the built form of an existing settlement. The highways officer advises that the proposed access arrangement is safe and there would not be a severe impact on the local road network. Therefore, the proposal is acceptable in terms of highway safety. As explained in the officer report, the proposed separation distances to neighbouring properties are not unacceptable, and the updated construction management plan would ensure there would be no unacceptable impacts on neighbours during the construction period. So I'll come back to this during my updates at the end of the presentation. So another key concern raised by the public is the capacity of local schools, the GP surgery and other local infrastructure to accommodate this development. If members were minded to grant planning permission, officers recommend that the following in financial contributions be sought to mitigate the impacts of this development. So we've got more than £552,000 toward increasing the capacity of schools, more than £59,000 toward increasing NHS GP surgery capacity, and more than £173,000 toward improving public open spaces. So combined with the biodiversity net gain contributions, officers recommend that a total of £809,725 be secured through financial contributions. Apologies, Chair, keep skipping ahead. So turning to the benefits of the development, the delivery of new housing, including 11 affordable homes and 11 bungalows, would lead to subsequent economic and social benefits. So this includes provision of new housing to address the county's needs, provision of affordable housing and bungalows to again address the county's needs, and the creation of jobs during the construction period, as well as increased footfall for local businesses once these houses are occupied, helping regenerate the village. So officers advise that the above should be afforded significant weight in favour of the proposal, particularly given the county's outstanding housing need. The proposal would also deliver a biodiversity net gain, which is also to be afforded some weight in favour. So just to conclude, Chair, in accordance with paragraph 11D of the NPPF, given the absence of a 5-year housing land supply, it's felt that the identified adverse impacts do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the proposed development. Officers therefore recommend that members approve this application, subject to an updated legal agreement and updated conditions. What I'll do is I'll link back to my updates at the start of the presentation, and then I'll probably come back to that slide at the end. So just to flick through the updates, Chair, paragraph 242 of the officer report sets out the contributions to be secured through a legal agreement should members be minded to grant permission. So following the publication of the report, the tenure of the affordable units has been amended. So instead of seeking 11 discount market sale units, the proposal now comprises 8 discount market sale units and 3 affordable rent units. And this has been agreed with the Affordable Housing Officer in this instance. We've also received one additional objection since the publication of the report. This has came from a neighbouring property to the south of the site, and they raise a number of concerns, including the proximity of proposed dwellings to their existing property to the south, and subsequent loss of privacy, and for both them and for the occupiers of the proposed dwellings. Concerns around loss of light for occupiers, again, of the existing property and also the proposed dwellings within the site. Concerns around noise and vibration and other disruption during the construction period. Concerns about no on-site play area and loss of existing public open space within the site. Concerns around potential contaminated land. Surfacing footpath connections at the southwestern site boundary. School capacity, and the proposal should include more bungalows and more affordable homes. So the above matters have already been considered in the officer report. Another update, Chair, is to Condition 2. So a number of the concerns raised can be covered by the construction management plan. So officers went back to the applicant to seek an updated document in response to those concerns. The applicant has made those last minute changes, and that came through yesterday, and officers are happy with that. And amongst those changes, the applicant has agreed to relocate their construction compound. So instead of it being located in the southeastern corner of the site, it's been moved further west away from the neighbouring properties. So officers appreciate that amendment. Officers therefore recommend that Condition 2 be updated to refer to this updated construction management plan, which is now revision C. The objection has also raised a number of concerns which are not material considerations when assessing a planning application and therefore can't be taken into account. Just for the benefit of the record, I'll quickly cover these now. So impact on the structural integrity of neighbouring properties during the works, the loss of value of neighbouring properties, and the value of the land when it was sold by the County Council to Believe Housing back in 2017. So I do have an additional update as well, Chair. So the same neighbouring resident to the south has raised concerns with the proposed location of 4 trees near to their property at the southern site boundary. On reflection, officers are happy for these 4 trees to be removed from the scheme. For the applicant's reference, these are the 4 trees located to the south of plot 102. Officers therefore recommend that an additional condition be imposed should members be minded to grant permission. This would secure an updated landscaping scheme. This new condition would enable officers to agree an updated landscaping scheme with the applicant, and hopefully we can get this all boxed off. So that concludes the updates, Chair. I'll just quickly flick back to the last slide. So as I say, officers recommend approval, subject to the updated legal agreements comprising the updated affordable housing tenures, and subject to the updated conditions, so that's changes to Condition 2, and also a new condition regarding updated landscaping. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Callum. I've got one speaker listed, Stephen Byrne. Do you wish to say anything, Stephen? You've got 5 minutes if you do.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. I think the officers give us a good overview of the scheme there. I just wanted to reiterate the points I've made, that we've been working with the local authority hard on this one to make sure we develop a high-quality housing scheme on what is a brownfield former housing site. And hopefully members see that in the scheme that's presented today. And ultimately just happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members, have you got any questions? Councillor Bellingham, Wilkes, Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Dawn Bellingham, Holden and Dean House. I just want to acknowledge and say thank you to Callum for the construction compound being moved. I've had long discussions with the member from Thornley and Wheatley Hill. And although there's not really big objections to this, as we've seen, but it's really nice to see that the officers and the applicants have worked with the residents and made sure that they've put things in there. And also acknowledge the removal of the trees. That's really good. My one question is, The concern about the piling on the southern boundary, that was also raised late last night, I think, or later on yesterday, Callum. And I know that you've put with regards to material influence on the fact, it's not a material concern, but still this resident has got the concern about the piling on that, that southern boundary. Could you just confirm that for me? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, Chair. So, as a result of piling, it is quite common on housing developments, particularly brownfield sites such as this. So, I understand there will be a little bit of piling. There will likely be some noise and some vibration. But if members of the public have any concerns with any piling, and this goes for any housing development anywhere in the county, they can come to my team in planning. We can take a look at that. We can also speak to environmental health, so Patrick, who was here earlier, and they can also check if there's a statutory nuisance. But there are processes in place. If there are concerns, the neighbouring resident can also go directly to the house builder if there are any concerns on that.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a number of highways and housing questions and issues with this. And one that just came to mind is I wasn't aware that this land had been sold by Durham County Council to Believe Housing, and I'd like clarification as to whether that is or is not the case, because it goes quite critically to the type of housing.
Is this relevant to the application or going back in time to 2017?
No, it is, Chair, because if that land was sold by the council in order that Believe Housing would put social housing on it, and we now only have 8 out of 105, I would want to know what's going on with that.
I don't think this is a planning issue, I'm afraid, so move on to your next question.
So, well, I do think it's a planning issue because of, but that's my personal view.
It's not a planning.
So, in terms of paragraph 144, which refers to the design review panel and Q4 local housing needs, it says that the score's unknown. And I'd like clarification as to why and what that means. And then with regards to Durham Key Options, they've got 368 people on a housing waiting list for Thornley, and 2/3 of them are people wanting a bungalow. Yet what we've got here is the affordable housing is just all 2-bed semi-detached houses.
I think, again, we've covered this in the report, and you're going beyond the actual point of the application.
Well, no, my question is, have officers actually spoken to the developer about some of these affordable housing units being bungalows? Because
okay, Callum, do you want to do this?
Yep, Chair. In terms of the queries around the land deal, I'm not familiar with the details because it's not my department that deals with that. If members have any queries in terms of land deals, feel free to speak to the corporate property and land team. Hope that helps in the meantime. In terms of the affordables, so Councillor Wilkes, you're right, in the officer report for question 4, it's paragraph 144 of the officer report. I have scored it unknown. The reason being at the time we were still working with the applicant on the tenure of the affordable units. So we were happy with the number of affordables, we were happy with the location of them. There were still some discussions around maximising affordable rent units. At the time when the report was published. I've had further discussions with the Affordable Housing Officer who has spoken to Believe Housing, who would be the registered provider. Ultimately, we are happy with only 3 affordable rent units in this instance because of the local need in Thornley. In terms of Durham Key Options, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the exact process on that. I'm not sure if the legal officer has anything on that.
Councillor Wilkes, can I just ask, what was your question regarding Durham Key Options?
Well, it's not so much about Durham Key Options, it's about the fact that we have to take regard of what the housing needs are as part of the planning process. The housing needs for this village are 239 people on a waiting list for a bungalow out of 368, and the entire affordable housing for this application is non-bungalow. Which then I would bring into question whether or not we are passing an application which meets with what we would aspire as a council and what the planning, the County Durham plan states that we should be doing.
Callum or Steve, which?
Yeah, I can chip in a bit, Chair. We're affordable housing provision, so I take the point around local need. This becomes a little bit difficult in an appeal scenario because we operate in a single housing market area. So we do have a number of sites coming forward elsewhere in the county that do include affordables, they do include bungalows. The applicant has discussed the affordable provision with Believe Housing. They believe there is a local need for 2 and 3 bed, 2-storey dwellings, and that's why it's being brought forward as part of the affordable offer. In terms of affordable bungalows, it is something that I do push for on sites, and I will continue to push elsewhere, so I'll take that feedback on board. Hopefully on future schemes we'll get more affordable bungalows.
Yeah, thanks for the answer on that, Chair. I've got a completely different question.
Have you got a question?
It's a completely different question, though. It's related to parking, because most of the parking on this site is tandem parking, so cars park behind each other on driveways, which is against the Council's 2023 Accessibility and Parking Supplementary Planning document. And that states one type of parking, for example, tandem parking, is discouraged. This is a poor design solution which has the potential to increase on-street parking at a detriment to the attractiveness of the development and safety of cyclists and pedestrians. And it goes on to say that it should not be the predominant design solution, and I would like to know why that hasn't been addressed. But more importantly, within paragraph 144 it says that the highways issue is categorised as red, and we're told that there's no highway safety related to that, but when you then look at the report online, it refers to the fact that the reason it's red is because the length of the roads and because the actual traffic calming isn't appropriate and isn't right and hasn't been addressed. So I wanted to know what has and has not been addressed in relation to these issues.
Callum.
Yep, Chair. So I think it's 2 good points, and I'll turn to the parking first. So I think this has been raised on previous sites as well. It's always a point of tension when working on the layouts of these schemes around how we're going to fit in the parking and the street trees, the visitor parking bays, and also drainage features. So different officers at the council have slightly different priorities. What we usually agree on these housing sites is that we're usually okay with tandem parking, so that's 2 or 3 parking bays stacked end to end. We do try to get parking bays that are adjacent to each other where possible, but sometimes there just isn't the room. And given the outstanding housing need in the county, officers are trying to maximise housing delivery where we can. So I appreciate it's not an ideal design solution, but on balance we feel the design solution is okay. In terms of the highways officer's concerns, so Councillor Wilkes, you're correct. It's question 9 in the officer report did receive a red score. The reason for this, it's a design matter rather than a highway safety matter. And I did have a good conversation with the highways officer at the time when he provided his comments. The concern relates around the length of the streets and the lack of a turning head halfway down the streets. So the highways officer would prefer, I'll get my proposed layout up. So this might help a little bit, Chair. So the highways officer would prefer to see turning heads located roughly halfway down these streets. We do have turning heads at the bottom, but from a design perspective, the highways officer would prefer a little bit more, but in the balancing act, I don't feel that's an issue which would lead to a defensible reason for refusal. And I think particularly given the outstanding housing needs in the county, it's a brownfield site in a sustainable location within the build form of a settlement. I don't feel it's a need to warrant refusal. The only alternative would be that we take houses out of this scheme to accommodate that turning head, and I don't feel it's justified. So I hope that helps, Chair.
Callum. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, and thank you, Callum. I think it's a great use of a brownfield site, and thank you for the clear report. One question and one observation. The observation was on the tenure of the affordable housing. Again, sort of, I know all divisions are different, but from what I see, the tenure need is around rented properties rather than and I get it that the discounted market properties fit in better with these types of housing sort of schemes. That's just a thought on it. Down to the question was, unless I'm incorrect, was on the lack of, and it was brought up in a public comment, lack of on-site play area. I don't know if there's unless I've missed it in the papers or missed it on the plan here, if there's one on adjacent site or not. But, you know, in a world when, you know, like when we're talking about getting children outside and playing off the screens, and we're building this side of a development, there's not an on-site play area. And if there's not, I'd take it that in the open space public money, is the money in there to do an off-site one? In the best case scenario, would have been better on-site, was just an observation, Callum.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Actually, on that one, I noted the preferred improvements to existing play areas nearby. Does that tie in with that?
Yeah, Chair. So as a standard requirement for development of this scale, we would normally seek a children's play area on site. But I had a chat with the relevant department within the council. The officers in that team are saying that in Thornley's instance, they have an existing play area which is quite big, but it is in need of a bit of investment in terms of its maintenance and just bringing it back up to standard. So in this instance, they would prefer to actually have the financial contribution put towards that existing play area. The applicant at the time was happy to put the play area on site, but it was actually an officer's request. So in this instance, I'm happy to take the money instead. Yeah.
So,
yeah, so on the is that on the tenure of the affordable units? Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, was that the one what wants refurbishing nearby, Callum?
Yeah, so it's one of the play areas nearby. It's off to the northwest. I've not got it on my drawing. It's off the drawing to the northwest, but it is within a reasonable walking distance to the site. I think the standard off the top of my head was about 480 metres. It's written down somewhere in the report. I can't remember what paragraph number. It's paragraph 197 of the report. Yeah.
Any more questions? Want to move on to debate? Anybody want to say anything? Councillor Bellingham?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I do think we have a great need. There's a great need in Thornley for this sort of development, and we've looked into everything. And again, I'll reiterate that I acknowledge the fact that the planners have engaged with some of the residents. So I'd like to move this proposal for for acceptance, to accept this development.
Thank you. Is that to also include the updated condition 2 and the updated landscape plan?
Yes.
And a seconder, Councillor Hope? Councillor Wilkes, have you got more to add?
Just say I won't be supporting this application. At paragraph 123, it says officers would normally expect 3 discount market sale units and 8 affordable rent units. We've got 105 houses, only 3 affordable rent units in an area with a massive housing need for social rent.
Thank you.
And we've got
and now
serious
we'll put it to the
housing concerns.
vote. You've made your
highways
point, Councillor
concerns that haven't
Wilkes.
been addressed.
You've made your point. Put it to the vote now. All those in favour of the application? That's 9. Thank you very much. Application?
All those against?
And against? All those against? Councillor Wilkes?
Any abstention?
Abstention, thank you. Application approved.